Welcome to Heart of North Texas, a philanthropic podcast that celebrates the work of nonprofit organizations in the region. In each episode, we will bring you stories of compassion, resilience, and dedication from the people who are making a difference in the lives of others. This episode brought to you by Credit the Cause, the home of the infinite donation. Our guest today is Natasha Bywater of CASA of Collin County. And now your host, Zoe Martin.
We are really excited to be able to be relaunching the Heart of North Texas. We're really excited to have Natasha Bywater as our first guest here representing CASA, which is something special that's near and dear to me. I'm very much an advocate for children. I feel like there are not enough people that step into that role, and I want people to understand the possibilities they have to volunteer for organizations that are working with children. So Natasha, tell me, why did you jump into CASA and take on this role?
Oh my goodness, it started so long ago. Right out of college, I wanted to make a difference for children, and I thought that I could save the world. I saw a place where you could make a difference in court, speaking up for children who've been removed from their parents. And I thought, oh yeah, that's me. I get to tell a judge what to do. I get to make recommendations to a court. Oh, that's me all day. I had all that arrogance of youth. I made a ton of mistakes as a volunteer. So bad, in fact, that the program kicked me off my case.
Oh, no.
But they were right to do it. I had made that many errors. A year later, they hired me, and I've been there since 1997.
Oh, my goodness. I didn't realize you'd been there that long.
Now I teach people how not to do it and all the other good tips because really this volunteer program, it's unbelievably powerful. It is for folks who are looking to volunteer. You can volunteer for kids in so many ways, right? Lots of fun ways, just weekends here and there. But CASA is a special breed of volunteer. It is the Navy SEALs of the volunteer world.
Oh, I love that.
It is not for everyone because of that. But this is for the folks who really want that impact, that legacy, to change this child's trajectory within a system that we all know is sadly broken. Mm-hmm. It's a powerful thing. I'm addicted, and that's why I've been there so long.
Right. And you did mention the title is a little lengthy, but basically you're training the volunteers who are going to be working directly with the children. Is that correct?
Exactly. When folks come in, they want to help children, but they don't know how. You don't have to be a legal expert to be able to be a CASA, a court-appointed special advocate. It sounds kind of scary. It sounds like, you're going into a courtroom. Averages 5 times a year, and making recommendations to a judge. I mean, that's, I still get butterflies in my basket when I walk in the courtroom, but that's appropriate.
Right.
Because it's a solemn occasion. Mm-hmm. And I teach people exactly what they need to be able to become that child's subject matter expert. That kiddo has to be in that courtroom. They don't want to be there. They have to be there. And they deserve to have somebody that isn't subject to all the turnover. It doesn't have dozens of other children that they have to think about. That's what an advocate is. We take one kid or a sibling group. Sometimes it's a brother-sister group that got taken from their parents. And you make a difference for them. You stand beside them in court. You go where they go. If they go to school, you go into school. Not all the time. Once a month, phone calls, visits. You go to their football game or their dance recital. You go watch them when their parents visit. I teach advocates how to do all those things like a champion. And when they get to court, the judge is all ears.
I did not expect this to happen, but I was a child who had to be in court, and I didn't have an advocate. So I had forgotten, honestly, and so I immediately felt the trauma when you mentioned how that child has to have an advocate there to back them up, and it would have been great to have somebody there to support me.
You're right.
Yeah.
You deserved that.
Yeah, and all the children do.
You bet.
Like I was 12 years old, and a child could be newborn to 18. So there's that giant range of the age differentiation. When you're looking for volunteers, I suppose you're not actively looking. People would contact CASA and say, I'd like to volunteer. Is that accurate?
Well, it's a little of both. We do put it out there because we are kind of the best kept secret. Truly, it's a difficult thing to explain. Child abuse is not something that goes around in common cocktail party conversation. But we recruit, we put out notices that we are looking for a special level of volunteer. And yeah, people do contact us when they find out who we are. When I tell folks that they can visit this child, have that kid light up when they recognize your face out of all the faces that they have to see all year while they're away from their home, all they know. The advocate is the one that doesn't change. The advocate, the CASA volunteer, is the one whose face they can always make out and who has the latest details on that kid's life, because everybody's so unique. And this casework isn't a cookie cutter system. I mean, it sort of is, but it shouldn't be. It needs to have nuance, and it needs to have details in these children's lives. And the judges are hungry for that data. They are so interested when an advocate comes and raises their hand to testify to court. Judges are looking straight at them, wanting to hear exactly what they think. Everybody else standing in front of that court has another dog in that hunt. Mm. They're representing somebody. It's their job. They're not wrong or bad, but they don't have one case. They don't have that level of focus. Mm. And that's what the court truly appreciates, and the child does too.
That's an excellent point, because as you're a lawyer or the judge and maybe the therapist, these people who are representing different aspects of what is happening with this situation, there are multiple that they all see in a day, much less a week, a month, a year. And so to have that one person be the spokesperson for that child is really powerful. What do you think would be a good fit for someone to be considered a volunteer?
Sure. So you have to be 21 or older.
Oh, good to know.
Because we want you to be stable. And when you're younger than 21, you move around a lot, and that's okay. But we do background checks, so we're looking for any assaults or child abuse in the backgrounds. That is a deal breaker. Mm-hmm. But the desire to help a child, and a willingness to lean into the cracks within this system, knowing that this agency, the CASA agency, doesn't just put a volunteer on a case and wish you luck and say, see you next year, good for you. Instead, we pair that volunteer with a staffer at CASA who serves as that advocate's coach and their cheerleader and their guide all along the way. They go with them to court. Every aspect in the case that changes, that volunteer coordinator is right there with that advocate going, okay, now that we know this, go here and find out this, that, and this, and call me back. and the advocate has marching orders, and they gather that information. And with all of those bits all year, we create recommendations to the judge about where this child can safely grow up.
Okay, great. Now, Heart of North Texas, obviously we're featuring people that are here in North Texas. Collin County is where your particular CASA is. But we talked about before the show that CASA started in Washington. Is that correct?
Yes, a Seattle judge back in the 70s, Judge David Sukup, sat on the bench hearing juvenile delinquency cases and CPS, child protective cases. And he never had the information that he wanted to have, he wished he had, when making choices about the kids in protective custody. He usually had like a district attorney and maybe a caseworker who may or may not have ever personally met that child. And he was making these big decisions, and he felt ill-equipped, and it bothered him. And it bothered him so much when one day on his juvenile court docket, the delinquency cases, here comes a case whose name was kind of unusual, and he recognized, and he looked at this child's name, and he realized that he had this kid on the other side of his court in child protective suit years ago. And here this kid is being faced with a crime, and judge just took it hard, and he felt responsible, and he decided he just could not keep making choices when he knew he didn't have enough information. He wanted a source of neutrally gathered, free from feeling and opinion, data about this child's circumstances. Give me the facts, just the facts, ma'am. And he thought it needs to be sort of like a jury member, but like a one-person jury member who doesn't know this family. They've got no other skin in the game. They are just here to help and make a fair decision with the information that they gather. So that's how CASA started in 1977.
That's fantastic. And since 1977, how many CASAs are there nationally?
There are probably 1,000 programs nationally, and in the Virgin Islands, there are 73 programs in Texas alone. And we serve by district, not by town so much. So we serve the district court. We serve that judge. So in CASA of Collin County, where I work on the historic square in downtown McKinney, we serve all of Collin County because that's the area over which our judges preside.
The Heart of North Texas is sponsored in part by Credit the Cause, a payment processing company that donates 40% of gross revenue to a charity of the business's choosing, turning the cost of doing business into purposeful giving. Visit creditthecause.com, the home of the infinite donation. And now, back to the Heart of North Texas with Zoe Martin.
There was another thing I was thinking with volunteering then. What would the timeline look like? You've been appointed to a child or their siblings. What kind of time is invested into it? And when I ask that, a couple of things. Is that like a weekly thing? Is it monthly, or could it be years?
That's fair. Because each case is so unique, you can't know. The cases are, by design, supposed to end within 12 months. That is federal law. But they can be extended one time for a 6-month extension for whatever circumstances. And our advocate is assigned within 48 hours of that child coming into custody. We want to be boots on the ground, hitting it running. And there are ups and downs, hills and valleys throughout the year. But we have a few things that are minimum, like we see the child. We lay eyes on the kiddo that we serve twice a month. One of the places is where they live, and the other one can be up to the volunteer, up to the advocate. And it could be those fun things, like I said before, going to a football game or the dance recital or the or watching a parent-child visitation from behind a two-way glass and seeing how the parents are showing up for that child. Are they getting any better than they were before? How are those parenting skills going? How's that child reacting to those new rules and guidelines? All those things. That's the kind of stuff that is time intensive. It's only an hour of visitation, but it's the kind of time where not everybody else in the case has the hours to donate to that and observe something repeatedly and being there constantly. So I look at it this way. Most volunteers report 10, 15 hours a month on CASA business. That's following the training. The masterclass training is pretty intensive. But once your case is signed, 10 to 15 hours, and maybe one or two of those appointments are set in stone by someone else, like a court. The court it's Wednesday at 10 a.m., and that's when it is. You can't choose. Or it's Friday afternoon. Those kinds of things, one or two per month, do require a volunteer or advocate to have a flexible daytime schedule. We never have last minute drop everything and run somewhere. No one, that's untenable for everyone, including the judge. So those don't happen. We know well in advance, weeks in advance, when these meetings and hearings are going to take place, but we have to be there. And so if we can put that on if you can put that on your calendar and say, yeah, 3 Tuesdays from now, I'm going to this meeting and it's going to be on, at 10 in the morning over here in Allen, Texas, then you've got the flexibility to do this work.
With people who are thinking they're considering volunteering and so far they've met the qualifications, what kind of a timeline is it for them once they've started the process to actually being appointed with a family?
Good question. So the answer may be a little frustrating for the volunteers, but it's actually, if you look at it, it's a really good thing for our kids. So many of the programs I told you there were 73 programs in Texas, and not nearly half of them can serve every child in their district who needs an advocate. We just can't do it. Collin County serves 100% of the children that are removed. Wow. We work really hard to make sure that we have enough advocates for when that bat signal shines in the sky and we know we've got a new case, we've got an advocate ready. They've been sitting on the bench during this game, but they never let their legs get cold, and they jump up and they say, "I'm ready, let's go." And so advocates do. You could wait a few weeks. I've had people wait a month or two after training classes end and they swear in for their case. And I know they're raring to go, but it's a good thing that we are ready when we're needed.
For sure. And I'm curious, with CASA, I'm imagining there's a foster care situation oftentimes with these cases. When there's a foster family, then the CASA advocate would need to integrate schedules or work with the foster family. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we work with everybody, in fact, not just the fosters, but it's a good point. So this advocate gets a court order that is incredibly powerful. It's a guardian ad litem court order. And it basically puts this volunteer advocate in charge of representing this child's best interests in front of the judge. And that court order gives us access. It supersedes HIPAA, FERPA. It gives us access to go and see the child. Wherever that child goes, we go. Anybody who has anything to do with that child, we talk to. So that means foster parents. That means birth parents. That means lots of relatives and family, teachers, former teachers, coaches, therapists, doctors, nurses, all those folks that have ever been in had anything to do with this child or care or play some sort of significant role, the advocate gets with them. We reach out and we say, listen, we have been tasked to make recommendations as to the ultimate best interest for this child. And that means their permanent plan of who's going to raise them, growing straight up. Do you want to be in on helping me make that decision? If so, call me back. And boy, they do.
This is jogging my memory for someone I'm thinking of right now that has a degree in social work of some kind. And they are not using that degree, but I feel like this could speak to them because it's not a full-time Monday through Friday. This is something that they could just step into as a role and still get that gratification that they're helping someone, right?
Yes, I get so many lawyers and doctors and engineers who have maybe an undergrad degree in social work or psychology or something, where they come to me and I'm going, you work at Raytheon. What do you? And, you're about to jump in the deep end of the pool of social work. And they say, you know what, this is what my passion is, but it doesn't pay the bills, but being an advocate, that will feed that desire to make a difference. I don't know about you, but I grew up with my father every morning, had that newspaper in front of him, and he constantly, never didn't happen where he would point out a story and say, good God, what is going on? If they let me, I'd go down there and do this, that, and the other. And he always had all the answers, right? Sitting there at the breakfast table. That's what we do. You read a story about child abuse, and you think, good Lord, what is going on? This CASA is where you can actually affect change in a real way. You change these children's trajectory, and there's no doubt about it.
That's huge. That is so huge. And I love that you gave the story about your dad and having the newspaper there, because it reminds me people are always armchair quarterbacks, right? I'm a Cowboys fan. I love the Cowboys. Yeah. Okay, how about them boys? But being that armchair quarterback, I understand that just, remember who the real enemy is, right? It's the ref. So you need to be mindful that, you can actually have an impact the trajectory of a child's life, where you also gave the explanation how the judge who started this recognized this was a kid that we'd had, and could we have maybe changed that if there had been somebody there to advocate for this child? Before we get off, I do want to say that CASA and the volunteer opportunity, it's going to be in the show notes. So we will have that CASA of Collin County. Natasha's name will be there. And then before we jump off, I do want to mention there's something that's upcoming. And I want you to tell me a little bit about an opportunity people have to be involved, and tell me, do you need volunteers for that? And there's going to be a follow-up question after.
Sure. So we're proper nonprofit, and so we have a big fundraiser coming up on October 24th. It is going to be over at Mercedes-Benz Plano. It is our Speak Easy soiree. So it is a casino night. We're going to have all the games and all the fun, and everybody's going to be dressed in kind of speakeasy fun, flapper wear.
And there it is.
There it is.
There it is. Okay. So for volunteering, do you still need volunteers? And I also wanted to know, this was the follow-up question, to what capacity can people volunteer outside of actually working with the children?
Right. So things like this, for our events, we do need all hands on deck. If you can't do advocacy just now, maybe that's not the time in your life, you've got a lot other things going on. That's no problem. You can give your time to one of our special events by just helping us run, being behind the scenes and just kind of running the show. We try to make our events fun for everybody, and we need a lot of help to make that happen. And so this is a small way that you can affect change within the agency itself, so we can keep going forward and continue to serve 100% of those kids that are in protective custody in Collin County.
That's great. I appreciate you so much coming and being our first guest when we're relaunching. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you feel like this is important and I wanted people to know this?
I want people to know that before they even apply to this program, they sign up and do a 60-minute Zoom with me. And we go through every single thing, what it takes, what it's going to look like, what support the agency is going to give a volunteer, what we're asking out of a volunteer, all the things, so that you know what you're getting into before you even apply to the program. And it's a soft sell. Yeah. I don't hound anybody. They know if they want to do it.
That's great. That's great. Thank you so much for being our guest.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being a part of the success of the Heart of North Texas podcast. This episode was brought to you by Credit the Cause, home of the infinite donation. Please check our show notes for contact information for the program, our guests, and our sponsors, and please tag us on your social media. Please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.